Welcome to Go Big Garage Saturday morning. Hope everybody's having a great morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about auto care this morning. If you're new to the channel, please hit us up with your subscription. My name is Go Big. I got 40 years in the automotive industry. I've been everything from a lube guy all the way to a fleet manager. So I've got 40 years in the industry. Saturday mornings is going to be just about basic auto care. And I thought with the winter coming up on us, this would be a good time to go over some automotive things to think about with winter coming up on us. So if you've never been here before, I'm Go Big. I've got 40 years experience in the automotive field. I'm an ASC certified master mechanic for over 40 years. So this morning we're going to start off by talking about tire care, brake inspections, windshield care, coolant, why it's important. Hey, Carl, how you doing, brother? We're just going to be doing some basic maintenance stuff for people that don't really know much about automotive. So it's more about just basic care. So it'll probably be about a 40-minute live this morning. It's pretty much more of an automotive audio. This will get posted as a podcast after the live. So if you guys have questions, please put in the comments what you have for questions. As you're coming into the live, would you please put in the comments who you are? Hey, Will, how you doing, brother? So this morning, I'm just going to talk about basic maintenance and what to be prepared for winter coming on. It's going to be a little different than what you guys are used to. Saturday mornings now, I'm doing just basic stuff. Hey, Will. Oh, Carl. Hey, Carl. I'll say hi to you again. Check it out. You guys will think this is funny. My eyeglasses, my left eye is great now, so I took the lens out. There's no lens on this side, so I could see better. So I'm going to get going on what we're talking about this morning. Hopefully we'll get a pile of people in the live. See, we just got a bunch of people that came into live. If you just came into the live, I'm Go Big. I've got 40 years in automotive experience, and we're going to go over basic car care this morning. This will get loaded as a podcast after the live. So if you know nothing about cars or you know a lot about cars, it's cool. This is a good place for you to be. So we're going to talk about how to prepare your car for the winter. Winter time's coming for a lot of us. Winter is already here. So first thing I'm going to talk about is tires and tire care and why they're important when it starts raining. Typically about 3 or 4 30 seconds is time to replace your tires. And a lot of people don't know what that is. And I'm not going to tell you how to inspect your tires. I would rather you take your car into a shop for the first part of the winter. It's a good time to do an oil change and start this season off fresh. It gives the mechanic an opportunity to look over your car and give you any kind of recommendations for things that they may see while they're doing the service. Like maybe you need a belt change, maybe you need a set of wiper blades, and we'll go over that stuff as we go. But let me explain to you a little bit why tires are so important when it starts to rain. So when it's raining, the treads in your tires are designed to push the water away out of the way. It directs the water. And so what happens is when your tires start to bald and they don't have as much tread, there's not as enough ability for the tire to direct the water out of the way of the vehicle. And what happens then is what they call hydroplaning. If you allow your tires to get so low that they're getting to the balding point, what happens is your tire becomes a ski. And that's when you see people where they hit a big puddle and they start spinning around out of control. It's because their vehicle started to hydroplane. So right now is a perfect time to take your car into the shop and say, hey, I want to get an oil change done. And while we're doing that, let's take a look at the tires and see what kind of condition they're in as far as depth of the treads. And then also while you're there, let's do a brake inspection. Why? Your car's braking ability is highly reduced in wet weather. You can't drive at the same speed and application of brakes, as you do in the summertime. So now's a very good time, to go ahead and do an oil change. Say, hey, let's pull the wheels and let's look at the brakes while we're there and get a good idea of what kind of condition the brakes and the tires are in while we have it on the rack. And so here's a couple recommendations I'm going to give you. Straight out every September, put new wiper blades on. Why do I say September? Even September is a good month because the rain's getting ready to happen, and just get ready ahead of time. And also, I'm probably not going to answer a lot of you guys' questions during this. We'll get to them at the end. And wiper fluid is something you need to want to keep an eye on top of. And I'm going to tell you something that I recently learned that works really good. They have wiper fluid tablets now, which I was kind of like, what are you talking about, But I've been using them now for about the last year. And to be honest with you, man, they're convenient and they work well. You drop a tablet in the bottle of water, you shake it up, and you have fluid. So you can do the same thing on your windshield washer bottle. You just drop the tablet in the bottle, fill it up with a water hose, and you're done. A lot of people can think about, oh, it's going to have debris. It does not leave any debris behind. Okay, so I highly recommend this time of the year is you put Rain-X on your windows. First of all, you should really be washing your windows really well to get a start of a good clean surface, because your visibility in the rain is what creates accidents. You can't see well, your braking is diminished, and then if you're driving too fast, you can't see well, and then somebody stops in front of you, that's where it happens at, That's where it happens at. So I recommend, that you put new wiper blades on, you make sure you got good washer fluid, and I'm going to recommend Rain-X. If you've never used Rain-X before, the first time you use it, you'll be a believer forever. Rain-X is such a good product, in my opinion. I've been using it for probably 25 years now, and it's probably one of the best products on the market for beating water off the glass. Yeah, get ready for winter. Exactly, farmer. So basically, a good brake inspection, an oil change, have them look over your belts and hoses while you got it on the rack, and new wiper blades. And so let's talk about coolant care for a minute. A lot of people don't understand that your coolant needs to be maintained. And there's what coolant does, the green stuff in the antifreeze. So antifreeze, the green stuff, they have all different colors now. But what it does, hey, look, you know what? Hang on a second, guys. Give me just a second. All right. I haven't winterized the boat, but I'm going to. I was out there yesterday working on the boat. So I live in California, so it doesn't freeze hard yet, but I am going to winterize the boat. So coolant care, it's hard to explain to people that antifreeze, over time, it needs to be replaced. Antifreeze does two things. First, it stops electrolysis from happening where you have two dislike metals, and it also lowers the freeze temperature of your water. And so what can happen with freeze temperature? So if you put straight water in your car at 32 degrees, it's going to turn into ice. And what happens then? As water freezes, it expands. As it expands, it starts breaking stuff. I'm almost finished. All right. So as the water expands, it can break things. It can crack your block. It can crack the head. It can crack the housing on the water pump. It can make hoses crack. So it can do a lot of things. So over time, there's a way to test antifreeze so you can see what the antifreeze protection is. It's not a big a deal if you live in California or somewhere where it doesn't get real cold, but you're living in the Dakotas or somewhere where it gets, 10 below outside, absolutely should have your antifreeze checked every year. And if you need to, you can, you can just replace the coolant. Just, if I live where it's really cold, where it gets down 10 below, I'd be changing my antifreeze every season. I learned that the hard way when I was in my 20s. I had a truck and I put straight water in it. I didn't know any better. I think I was younger than that. I was about 18. And I cracked the block in a straight 6 Ford pickup because I put straight water in it. So that's one of the things you need to do. You need to be thinking about your antifreeze before winter hits. You have it checked. If it's not meeting the specification to get the freeze level down or the acidity of the coolant has changed, you need to do an oil. You need to do a coolant flush. You just take it to the shop and say, "Hey, I want the coolant flushed." That checks the temperature it can handle. Yeah, okay. A Just Farmer. So they have strips you can do. They're not very expensive. You just dip them down in there. You just dip them down in there and it'll tell you the freeze protection. We've been using those at our shop for a while. They're pretty accurate, and it also gives you a pH of the coolant so you kind of know when it's getting to the point that it needs to be replaced. The wiper fluid tablets, I highly recommend those. I didn't put any links today because I was just wanting to get on here and start the live. Give me a second. I got to get me a moderator. Yeah, I really need to get a moderator. Give me just a minute. I know we've talked about this before, but anyway. Okay, here's another thing to think about. Is your heater working to capacity and is your defrosters work? And if you don't understand defrosters, on your dial, there's a place where it'll say defrost. When you turn that to defrost, you should get heat out of the vents. And what does that do? Well, that helps heat the glass up to get rid of ice off the glass, and it keeps condensation off the glass when you're driving. So in the wintertime, a lot of times your window will start to fog up. Okay. I'm going to ignore these ding-dongs for a little bit just so we can get through this. Next time, we're going to have us a moderator ready. So the heater is something you want to think about now. Don't wait until it's really cold out and all of a sudden you don't have heat and you have no defrost on the window and it becomes a problem. Think about it now. And here's a product I want to tell you guys about that are in the really cold areas, where it gets really cold, is de-icer. I was unaware of de-icer for many years, and a place where I worked, they kept it in all the work trucks. And I tried it one day, and I was thinking, man, this de-icer is amazing. So it comes in a can. It just says de-icer on the can. And I used to be the guy out there scraping the window with my credit card, taking the thing and trying to get it clear. And but this de-icer is just in a can, and you can spray that stuff on like a 1/4-inch sheet of ice. Within 30 seconds, the windshield's clear. So if you're living in really cold areas, I highly recommend thinking about getting a can of de-icer and just keep it in the vehicle. And then you can just spray it on it as you're getting in the vehicle in the morning. The ice is gone. It makes it really easy. It's mostly, yeah. Is it just alcohol, Farmer? Is that what it is? Yeah, heater cores. Let's talk about heater cores. Yeah, you're in Minnesota, so you know all about cold weather. So heater cores are something, and that's something to keep in mind when I'm talking about coolant care. When you leave your coolant in the vehicle for a long time and you don't maintain it every couple of years, I'd recommend it once a year if you can afford to do that. What can happen is it starts to build up debris in the coolant. And heater cores have a very, very small little tiny runners in it. It's basically like a little radiator that lives under the dash. And the water goes through the heater core, it heats up that little radiator, and then a fan comes on and blows air through that hot radiator, heater core, and that's where you get your heat from. So what can happen if you don't maintain your coolant like you should, all those little tiny debris get hung up in that heater core. And once they get to that point, now it doesn't get flow. So even though the temperature of the vehicle is coming up to temperature, you're not getting any heat in the vehicle. And then you lose your defroster, which is really dangerous. So that can be really dangerous, like because when you're driving down the road and you're wiping your window because you can't see out of it, it's a really serious danger of creating an accident situation. And in the wintertime, slow down a little bit. I'm one of the worst ones for that. It seems like everywhere I go, I'm wide open throttle. And when the first rain comes, that's something to think about. Because what happens during the first rain of the season, all summer long, people's little oil leaks here and there, brake fluid that's on the road, it sits in the bottom portion of the blacktop. And then the first rain, what'll happen, all that oil will come to the surface. So your first couple rains during the season is a really good time to be really slowing down, because it gets slick because of the oil comes to the surface of the road, So just while heating. What do you mean? Heater core replacement can be very expensive. You're a lot better off to have your coolant, and you can just do a drain and fill. You don't have to go do a flush. You can just, drop the lower hose, drop it in a pan, put new coolant in it once a year, and you'll be good to go. It's a lot cheaper to do that than to, let me put this camera a little bit this way. It's a lot cheaper to do that than to have to pay somebody to change the heater core. Some of these heater cores now, you got to pull the whole dash out to get the heater core out. I can remember back in the days of doing the Ford Tauruses, where it was a 10-hour job to get the heater core out. You have to recycle the air conditioning system. You have to tear the whole dash out. It's like a 10-hour job. And nowadays, I was just told the other day that our local dealership here in town just moved their labor rate to $250 an hour. So think about what that is now. That job on a Ford Taurus back in the day was a 10-hour job. At $250 an hour now, that would be $2,500. So think about what that means in today's, like coolant is cheap compared to having to spend a couple $1,000s to have somebody change out the heater core. So just, make that part of your annual inspection. Carl, does that have anything to do with what I'm talking about? So the water pumps don't really have a maintenance program. Water pumps are are more of an inspection. The best way to inspect a water pump is get your hands down in there on the pulley, or if it has a fan, and rock it side to side and take a good look at it. Water pumps also have what they call a weep hole. You can take a mirror down in there and look at that weep hole. And what the weep hole is, it's a place to give you an indication that the shaft is starting to leak. So if you get a mirror down in, and that's something that mechanics look at when they're doing inspection, you'll look at that water pump weep hole. And if there's coolant coming out of that weep hole, it's an indication that your water pump's getting ready to go. So, but as far as freezing, like water freezing, yeah, that water pump can crack. I've seen it happen. So, you know, that's one of I've seen a lot of things happen when it comes to like electrolysis from not changing your coolant, where it'll actually just start eating parts. You know, the coolant gets acidic, and I pulled off water pumps and the impeller was like half eaten off. We had a overheat one time. We were chasing, and we had put a bunch of parts on it. They changed the radiator, the thermostat, did a bunch of work, and we couldn't get this thing to cool down. And what we found was when we pulled the water pump off, the impeller that moves, makes it flow, what was an indication, you could look down in the radiator and the flow just didn't look right. So we pulled the water pump off, and the impeller that actually rotates in the water that makes the flow of the water, the impeller was about half eaten off. The fins were almost gone. You see that on boats a lot. They have a little rubber impeller on them, and you should really go in there and change those once a year because they just wear out. The rubber wears out, and then there's nothing to make the water flow. So, you know, it's that time of the year. It's time to think about your maintenance on your vehicle. You know, it's time to, you know, look at the wiper blades, put on some Rain-X, and I'll do a video on how to do Rain-X. Rain-X is basically wash the window really good, dry it. It needs to be fairly warm outside. You can't do it when it's cold. So it needs to be about, I think they don't recommend it below 60. So you wipe the window down, you put the Rain-X on with a rag, and then you let it dry. It's kind of like wax in your window. You let it dry, and then you buff it off. And you know, I use this on my motorhome because my motorhome has horrible wiper blades on it. No matter what you do with wiper blades on some of the older motorhomes, they just don't wipe the water the way they should. And so when I do Rain-X on the motorhome, I'm not exaggerating, I could turn the wipers off and drive down the road. It will bead the water so fast that I don't know why more people don't use Rain-X. It's better than putting new wiper blades on. But if you do Rain-X with new wiper blades and good washer fluid, and let me tell you the reason behind washer fluid and even wipers during the summer. A lot of people get out of the use of doing wiper blades in the summertime. They think, oh, it's not raining. Yes, you need to have good wiper blades and good washer fluid in your bottle and know that the washer pump is working. So when you push the button, it should be spraying windshield washer fluid on the glass, and there's a reason for that. Let's say in the summertime you're bolting down the road, you're in traffic, you got people side by side to you, and somebody blasts across a can of paint in the road or hits a big old nasty puddle of something and splashes it up on your window at 75 miles an hour in traffic. If you have good wiper blades and washer fluid, you can clear that out of the way where you can see where you're going. So, you know, wiper blades are not just for wintertime. They're more important during the wintertime. Yeah, clean the blades. Exactly, Carl. And you know what's a good thing to clean that with is just alcohol wipe. Like, you know, those alcohol pads, you can just use the alcohol pad on there. So to prep for winter, I would recommend, you know, if you're not an auto mechanic, you're not mechanically inclined, take your car in and start with an oil change for the season. While you have it there, ask them to look at the brakes, do a brake inspection, put new wiper blades on, make sure the washer bottle is full and that the wipers are functional, you know. And then, you know, those are some things I recommend. And tire care is probably, you know, they're expensive. You know, I get it that tires are expensive, but what's your life worth? I've seen so many people get in accidents because their tires are just, they shouldn't have been driving on them. And if you don't understand tire care or when they should be changed, take them into a shop, have them look at them. Most shops will look at your tires for free. They want to sell you tires, so they'll more than happy to look at them. And if they tell you that you need tires, have them take you out there and show you where your tread depth is, and have them show you a new tire and show what the tread depth is. Because once you lose those treads on the tire, your possibility of spinning out in the road is increased dramatically. Because if you hydroplane at 60 miles an hour, you're just along for the ride. You know, there's nothing you can really do. You're just along for the ride. So anyway, I hope that was helpful to you guys today. I just wanted to put out some tips for weather care. If you guys, does anyone have any other tips you want to add in the comments that maybe I didn't go over, I didn't think about? If you have anything to add, you know, drop it down in the comments. And we're going to do this every Saturday morning. Last Saturday, I went over brake just to make people understand how a brake system works. Today was more about maintenance, but I'm going to do more of these, like keep it simple, Sally. That's what I'm calling this. Saturday morning, 11 a.m. between 11. I was a little late this morning, 11:15. Around 11 a.m., we're going to do the Keep It Simple podcast, where we can just talk about basic stuff. So if you don't know anything about a vehicle, this is the perfect podcast for you, because we're just going to go over basic stuff like, you know, this is a belt. This is what drives your water pump and your alternator. You know, this is an alternator. This is what it does. And we'll explain all that. Here's something I left out of the mix. I can't believe I forgot this. Batteries. Now is a perfect time to have your battery tested, because batteries normally fail the first week it gets really cold. Like working in shops for 40 years, soon as the temperature drops, that next week we'll have 20 batteries come in. Because cold weather is when a weak battery will show its ugly face. The first morning you have a real cold morning when it's like, you know, 10 degrees outside, or, you know, depending on where you live, you know, that first really cold morning is when that weak battery is going to show its ugly face. You'll go out there and it won't even hardly crank, you know, and it's because batteries don't like to operate in cold weather. It's just the way they are. So, you know, think about that. You know, if you're taking your car in, have an oil change, have new wipers put on, and, you know, all these things we talked about today, say, hey, while I have that in there, can you load test the battery? They just hook up two cables and they put a load on it, and they can tell if the battery's good or bad. And have them explain it to you. Say, can you show me why it's bad? You know, how does that thing tell me that it's bad? So they have voltages that they look at. And basically what they do, they replicate what the starter is doing by putting a big load on it. It's usually 1/2 cold cranking amps, or 3 times the ampere hour of the battery. And they'll put that load on the battery for 20 seconds. And that's basically, you know, like a 20-second startup cycle of your starter. So they're replicating that. And, you know, maybe on the next live, I'll show you guys how you can use a voltmeter, and you can do this without that fancy machine. You have to disable the ignition system or the fuel system to do it, but we can show you with a voltmeter how you can do that exact test at home with just a voltmeter by disabling the fuel system or the ignition system during cranking. And then you can see what kind of condition your battery is in. I try to say, and a lot of people think I'm a little crazy about it, I don't like to see less than 10 volts. The spec is usually around 9.5, 9. But for me, 10 volts, if it drops below 10 volts, it should probably be thinking about getting a battery. I don't know where these people come from, man. I really don't. We got to get us a moderator that's in here all the time. Do you guys want to add anything to today's comments about getting your vehicle ready for winter? Maintenance tips on winter? And if you have vehicles that sit all winter, think about getting a battery maintainer. You'll save yourself a lot of money. I didn't post any links today, but that NOCO Genius 1 is a 1 amp battery charger. They're under 30 bucks. So I put one on my motorcycles. I have 3 motorcycles, so I put one on each of the bikes now. And the reason I do that, if you do not keep your batteries charged through the winter, come spring, you'll be buying a new battery. Because what happens is sulfation happens really fast. When sulfation happens is when the battery sits uncharged and it starts building up sulfation on those plates. And if you keep it charged up with a trickle charger through the winter, come springtime, you won't be buying a battery. So spend the 35 bucks, and buy you a decent trickle charger. NOCO, I recommend the NOCO Genius 1 for that. And, get those things starting to charge now before the weather gets really cold. So if you guys don't have any other comments, I'm going to go ahead and say bye. I'll see you guys on Tuesday night for the Tuesday night Tinkering Tuesday, where we show our projects off. And I'm going to call it a day. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I appreciate you stopping by. I'm going to hit you up with this little thing that I made. If you're not subscribed here, please hit us up with your subscription. We appreciate it 100%. And as Go Big says, go big or go home, baby.